Good morning, students. This video is for class 6 science, and today also we will continue with biology chapter number 7, that is adaptation. And today our topic of discussion will be adaptation in adaptation for aquatic habitat. That means what are the changes that you can see in the plants and animals that live inside the water. Plants and animals that live in water develop special adaptive features to help them grow and survive. So both plants and animals which live in the water, they adapt to the condition, they make changes in their body structure so that they can survive, so that they can live inside the water. The more time they spend in water, the more adapted the organisms are to survive in the aquatic habitat. So, the more and more they stay in the water, they get used to it. They get adapted. Their body get adapted. Their body get adjusted to the condition, and they can survive easily. Freshwater plants are called hydrophytes. What do you mean by hydrophytes? Hydro means water and phytes mean plants. So, freshwater, the plants that live in the freshwater, they are known as hydrophytes. Freshwater means the water that is found in the pond, the water that is found in the river, the water that is found in the lakes, they are freshwater. So, first is the aquatic plant. That means the plants that live in water. Plants that grow and live in water are called aquatic plants. The following figure shows the different types of aquatic plants. So there are different plants. There are not only one type of plant that live in water, but there are various plants that live in water. So what are the different types of plants? Number one is emergent plants. Some water plants are called emergent plants because even when the roots are fixed in the soil of the shallow waterbed, the leaves and stem extend out of the surface of the water body they are growing in. So, this emergent plant means the plants that live in water, the roots are fixed to the soil, but the leaves are out of the water. They peep out. That means you can say in simple language, half of their body part is inside the water, that is fixed, the root is fixed in the soil, but the leaves are outside the water. For example, some example of emergent plants are bulrush, arrowhead and sedge. You can see the picture that is given in 7.10. The emergent plants, you see, they actually grow. Suppose if this is a water bed. If this is a water bed, water is here. They grow on the sloping sides, not deep inside, but sloping sides. The plants grow here. So the roots are fixed here. But the stem and the leaves are outside the water. And example like bulrush, then arrowhead and sage. The next is the fixed plant. Fixed plant. So in figure 7.10 you can see the different types of aquatic plants, and the picture also you can see where they grow in the water. These plants are fixed to the water bed with the help of strong roots, hence they are called fixed plants. For example, lotus and water lily. So these fixed plants, the roots are very strong and they are very strongly fixed to the soil, and their flower, their stem are out of the water. Like for example, lotus and water lily. They have thin long stalk that are hollow and light in weight. So stalk, that means they have thin like branches. They are hollow, nothing is in between this. they are hollow, they are empty, and they are very thin. These keep the flowers and leaves floating on the surface of the water. So because the stem is hollow from inside, that is why this helps, the hollow stem helps them to float on water. The leaves of these plants have a waxy coating that prevents them from getting wet. What waxy coating? The leaves of this water lily, lotus, you will see, if you see them very firmly, very closely, you will see that there is a waxy coating, very thin sheet of plastic like substance covering the whole leaf, so that they don't get rotten when it is where it doesn't get rotten due to the presence of water in them. Just because they grow in water, the water can this waxy coating prevents them from getting rotten. The leaves have stomata on the upper side instead of the lower side, because lower side is always on top of the water. That is why they cannot exchange gases. So the stomata on these types of plants, on fixed plants, they are on top side, on the upper side of the leaf, so that the exchange of gases can take place. Fixed plants absorb nutrients from the soil in the water beds through their roots. So these plants get nutrients, get the required food from food from the soil by using the root. The next type of plants are underwater plants. These plants grow and remain completely submerged into the water. So underwater plants are those plants which remain inside the water. The whole portion, the whole plant is inside the water. That is why they are known as underwater plants. Like for example, Hydrilla, Vallisneria and pondweed. They have thin, narrow, ribbon-like leaves to prevent them from getting torn by the force of water current. So if you see the leaves of these underwater or submerged plants, the leaves are needle-like, they are pointed, so that when the force of water strike on them, they don't get torn. If the surface area of the leaf is big enough, the force will strike and they will be torn. But in this case, that they are pointed, they are needle shaped. So the surface area is also very less, and when the water hit them, when the flow of water, when the pressure of the water hit them, nothing happens. So, and they survive. The leaves of underwater plants do not have stomata, but they take in carbon dioxide from the water through their body surface. So these leaves do not have stomata in them, but they take carbon dioxide that is mixed, that is dissolved in water, and they take this with the help of the small pores, small holes throughout their body. These plants do not bear flowers. That means these plants do not grow flowers do not grow on this type of plants. They get nutrients through the roots from the soil in the water beds. They get their required amount of nutrients, whatever food they want, from the soil using the roots. Underwater plants support animal life to a great extent because they give out oxygen during photosynthesis, which keeps the aquatic animals alive. So these underwater plants, they help animal life to a great extent. How? When they make food, when they prepare food using in the process of photosynthesis, they release what? They release oxygen, and this oxygen is taken by the aquatic animal that live in the water. In this way, aquatic plants help a lot in surviving of the aquatic animal. The next is it was underground water, underwater plants. Next is floating plants. Plants that float on water are called floating water. So these plants, they float on water. They remain on the surface of the water. For example, duckweeds, water lettuce, and water hyacinth. These plants float on water because either they have air filled inside their stem, for example, water hyacinth, or they are very small and light in weight, For example, duckweed. So these plants, why do they float on water? Maybe they are very small in size. They are very small in size and lightweight. Or in these plants, in the plants in the stem of these plants, air is filled, which makes this type of plants float on water. The roots absorb nutrients directly from the water. In this type of plants, the roots are not attached to the soil. They get the nutrients, they get the required amount of food which they need to survive from the water itself. Because the roots are not attached to the soil, they are floating. That is why these plants are known as floating plants. So I hope children, all of you understood this aquatic plants. So please read this. Aquatic plants are those plants which live in water. There are different type of aquatic plants. For example, emergent plants, then you have fixed plants, then you have underwater plants, and finally you have floating plants. So children, after watching the video, please read the paragraph, then it will be easy for you. And remember, you have to learn the example of each type of plants. So children, for today we will keep it till here. In the next class we will start with aquatic animal. So for today, up to this much. Thank you, class.